Hi, it's Brad Saunders. I'm the CEO at Community Living Toronto, and welcome to our Community Chats podcast. Today, we're continuing our Belonging series, where we're sitting down with people across the province who are shaping disability inclusion all across the province. I'm joined today by Chris Beesley, who's the CEO of Community Living Ontario and has been since 2013. Chris leads a network that has grown to almost 130 organizations across Ontario. And their role is to advocate both for individuals with intellectual disabilities and their families, as well as the service organizations and supports that are provided for them. We also talk about what lessons Ontario can draw from its closures of institutions. The last one closed in 2009. We'll also look ahead and to the gap between policy promises and lived reality. What meaningful inclusion really requires at a systems level and at a community. Also, what's next on Community Living Ontario's agenda. Chris brings a great perspective as a professional and a parent. We had a great conversation. As always, belonging begins with listening. So grab a coffee, perhaps an iced coffee since it is deep in the summer, and enjoy our conversation. So Chris, thanks for joining us again today. Good to have you back.
Yeah, great to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
Yeah, now we're deep into summer as we're having this conversation. How's the summer going?
Hey, the summer's short, so making the most of it. And yeah, we've got a family member who's staying with us for the summer. She's a university student, so kind of seeing Toronto and Ontario through the eyes of somebody who's never been here before. She's up from North Carolina, so that's been kind of fun.
Okay.
And then, yeah, spend some time up north, outdoors, and yeah, like the rest of us, right? Trying to make the most of it.
Of the brief summer thaw that we have here in the summer. And it's so true,
Exactly.
You never get to see, we live in a great city, but you don't really take it in enough until you've got somebody else that's
Yeah,
here and wants to go to all these places.
absolutely. Yeah.
What's the highlight been for your guest so far?
Oh gosh, I think she went to the ROM this past weekend. She's been to we went to Port Hope yesterday just as a date, sort of a bit of a day trip. She's been to a concert. She's been to up the CN Tower. She's been to the aquarium. Yeah, she's kind of trying to hit a lot of the cultural and entertainment aspects that coming from a smaller town she doesn't normally have access to,
Right.
and from a Canadian perspective we're trying to she's her dad's Canadian, my cousin, so we're trying to
Okay.
connect her to her Canadian roots.
Good. That's excellent. Hope it goes well and that the rest of the summer is a lot of fun
Yeah, thanks.
for you. We're going to talk a bit about belonging, but there's a lot going on, so I thought we'll cover a bit of the waterfront here. Um, Starting off with sort of maybe a retrospective question. You've been CEO at Community Living Ontario since 2013. How have a couple things? How have your priorities changed in those 13 years since you started? And what have you seen evolve in the sector and with how people are supported and involved in their communities since then?
Yeah, thanks. Gosh, I think there's been an evolution, at least within Community Living Ontario, and I think by extension to a lot of our members, to really try and bring in and pay attention to and work with the people that are, who identify as having an intellectual or developmental disability, and their families. So where there are supportive people, whether it's their chosen family or their actual family, how do we listen to? Some people would say walk with, be relevant to, and supportive of people and families. And I think we're doing a better job of doing that listening and connecting and working with, so that what we advocate for and the supports that our member organizations provide are as much as possible unique to them and supporting their goals and their hopes and their dreams. There's always the funding, the wait lists, the advocacy that Community Living Ontario does with its members and with families and with people with lived experience. But I think coordinating a cohesive voice there, we've come a long way along those lines. So I'm kind of hopeful in that if we can go forward on that basis with a shared voice, a shared commitment, shared values, and shared priorities, that's what's going to move things forward ultimately.
Okay. That's um that's good. And there's this piece around. So the nice thing about the community living movement is it's always been very grassroots. Our organization goes back to 1948 and a letter to the Star and a meeting in a church basement. Many organizations across the province started that way. So the voice of families and the voice of people with disabilities has always been pretty prevalent. I, is it just me, or we're sort of seeing this continuation and greater involvement of people with lived experience, and it's beyond just an evolution in language, moving from sort of self-advocates to people with disabilities to people with lived experience. How are you seeing? How's that evolved over the last number of years? What do you see that is bringing a lot of hope or inspiration for you?
Yeah, we're certainly with our own council. And again, council is a group of 12 elected people who identify as having that lived experience. And so the extent to which we've been able to have tons of people who are always running for that position. We probably have more people who are interested running for council than we do on our board. So
Right,
I don't know if
right.
that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it's great to see the enthusiasm and the involvement that I think, you know, galvanizes certainly my resolve when I hear about the perspective, the passion, and the priorities that council has, and then connecting them with the people who make those decisions in government, right? And connecting to people who are going to school to work in this sector, and having them speak with and present to and educate them. It's really been an important piece of the work when we talk about belonging. Um, there's a lot more to it than the word. And
Right.
you know, even when we talk about the journey to belonging and that sort of ministry big picture initiative, um, what does that actually mean, and what's it going to take to actually embed people in lives that they feel are worthwhile, are productive, and are contributing to their communities? And it is not in the historic places and spaces we've put people. And
Yeah.
so but that's a tough conversation sometimes. But if we're willing to listen and willing to work with rather than do for, I think that's the maybe that's part of the secret ingredient.
Yeah, the other piece that at Community Living Toronto, we have a group called the Influencers that are talking about passions that they have in their own lives, in addition to issues related to disability. And the internet, social media, can kind of be a toxic environment. And I actually, to the degree that I spend too much time on these platforms, I actually am starting to more seek out and trying to build an algorithm that is more focused on things that are positive and uplifting and people talking about what's going well in the world.
Mm,
Because there's a lot of noise around things that aren't going well.
sure.
So I think that that balance, and again, I think your council is an example of that, as are a bunch of other community livings around the province. Just talking about things that people are doing that are fun and interesting and a little more uplifting and inspiring than a lot of the negative stuff that we see.
100%. I think that influences our own mental health, and but also our attitudes. And what's that? There's an old saying, your attitude determines your altitude.
Oh, okay.
And so if you have a positive outlook, it's not enough to have a positive outlook, but you need a positive outlook in order to move forward. If you think it's not, it's why bother, it's all doom and gloom, there's no use, then you're not likely to do anything to make things better. Whereas if you have a positive attitude, and it makes you more proactive, and it makes you want to move forward and inspires you to do things. So yeah, I would encourage anyone to put a positive spin on their algorithm, because it's so easy to go down the rabbit hole of negativity. And I think that's our tagline at Community Living Ontario is inspiring possibilities.
Right.
So that says what you're talking about right there.
Right line there. The other thing that's been quite cool with this is that how easy it is for people to just get on their phone or their computer and talk about their life experience and share what's going on. in a way that wasn't possible. Well, even when you started 13 years ago,
Absolutely.
it's all been democratized. We can all get on and share our opinions. So more of us, I think, need to take that sort of approach. Be a little more up, a little more positive. Life ain't so bad.
I mean, there's if you don't have challenges, you don't appreciate the good things.
Yeah,
But let's put a spotlight on the good things, so that again, conversely, when the
yeah,
challenges come along, we will be resilient enough
yeah,
to move forward and be better.
yeah. Now, Community Living Ontario has always done a ton of advocacy, and again, societal advocacy, where you're pushing for more inclusion and belonging in the education system. What are some of the big wins or successes, progress that you've made in some of your advocacy files over the last number of years?
Hmm. Uh, I think it's funny. The wins come. Uh, they feel very small a lot of the time, and yet they have a ripple effect or a larger impact over time. I remember during the pandemic where, we got government to shift what were eligible passport expenses and getting them to
Right,
think about, what is it that is eligible around technology and around fitness equipment, and what could be spent because people are locked down in their homes. And yes, it's meant for community participation, but when there's no community and it's all online, how do we pivot that? So that was an example of government understanding and willing to shift things because we brought it to their attention. They weren't thinking
right,
about it, but
right.
when they did, it made a lot of sense. I think about we and connection and collaboration with Community Living Toronto and Provincial Network and Oasis, and trying to get them to recognize that, hey, you can't paint a broad brush when it comes to not letting in international students,
Right.
because we are short on developmental service workers. We need people in this sector to be committed to working in this sector, and so we were able to get some shift in policy at the federal level. So that's a great thing, and it's a great example of collaboration. And I think about uh, employment and how that's an evolving piece, but we have a
It
national
is.
initiative that we were able to get funding for and continue to through our Ready, Willing, and Able initiative, and that's connecting, telling the story about a Ready, Willing, and Able talent pool
Right.
who have developmental disabilities, but talking to companies about that and making that pitch that's been really well received and continues to be. I think we're 12 years in now on that one, but then also looking provincially at some of the challenge around employment reform and working with the Ministry of Labor to say, yeah, it's no wrong door, but now unfortunately there's no right door sometimes for people we're concerned about, and having to work 20 hours a week before it's even registers on the scale of remuneration for an employment service agency, and how it's cut. It's the bureaucracy has eliminated many of our members from even being in that space, and so that's harmful to people. So again, that's an ongoing story. So stay tuned
Yeah.
on that one.
Yeah.
But it's those really substantive issues that we continually take on. Housing being another big one, and for Community Living Ontario, it's the yes, it's the having the conversations with the right people in the right ministries, and connecting to our federal counterparts and doing some work there, but then connecting with our member associations like Community Living Toronto and connecting to the work you're doing, and how does that, you should talk to, and that, that kind of thing. So we're the connectors in a lot of ways that, it often feels like the progress is sort of at a glacial pace. but
Uh,
but it's all the little meetings, it's the little connections, it's the webinars, it's the relationships that build upon themselves, where we do see over time that evolution. So when we look at institutional practice from the past, and finally institutions closing, and then moving into more community-based supportive living, and then we look now we're talking about Community Living Toronto and its vertical community initiative. Big
right.
difference from group homes of 40, 50 years ago, and
Yep.
and what you're doing now. So the conversation is evolving, but as long as we can always are willing to have the what's next and what might be better with the people supported. That's going to move things forward. So we always want to be at the table. We always want to be in that space, whether it's with locals, organizations, provincial, national governments, collaborating with other organizations who are kind of, in shared spaces, sometimes very directly, other times more sort of tangentially, and trying to make those common links and move things forward on that space, which is a long-winded way of saying the work's ongoing, but we're doing our best.
Well, no, but you touch on an important point, that you talked about a bunch of small changes that have happened over time, and you never want to miss the opportunity to hit a grand slam and have a big policy win or a big change where you go, wow, on this day, like, you mentioned institutions. The last institution in Ontario closed in 2009. Like that's just, and that was a culmination of more than 25 years of work to close those institutions. That is, you look back and go, wow, that was a big day. You don't get a lot of moments like that where you go, wow, this was significant. But I think it's important as we do this work, and as a federation of organizations, that we're realizing the incremental change, incremental growth, incremental development over time. So the progress is going in the right way, even if the steps along the way feel small, or smaller than you'd like.
Absolutely. And I think, our advocacy efforts over the last 3 years or so have been very targeted, very specific, and very intentional. And so it was the 5 to Survive 3 years ago, right? 5%. Yep. We were looking for 5% core funding increase for agencies. We got 3%. So that felt like partial win, but it gave us a template of when there's coordinated effort, when there's speaking with one voice, when there's shared priorities, and then there's the various tactics that go along with that. I mean, the secret sauce there was, I was a talking head on the morning shows and all that kind of thing, and that's fine. But it really was galvanizing our membership and the people and families they support to contact their MPPs, to have the meetings, to have the conversations, so that at Queen's Park, they were all talking about it. They were talking about our sector.
Yeah, and I guess there's a couple things. One, you're out there, you're delivering a message. How do you, and you've got more than 100 members now, right? You're more than 128. That's fantastic. How do you, and then like from our perspective, right? You've got a Community Living Toronto organization, or our organization. We've got a board of directors, we've got committees, we've got members and stakeholders who all have priorities and all that. And then you multiply that times 128 agencies. How do you pull all that together to get down to one sort of campaign? And I'll take 5 to Survive or We All Belong. How do you pull that together? What's the secret there?
Oh, wow. If there was a secret, I think I wish I'd like to know it. It's
right. Yeah.
I think it's, so yes, it's pulling together the 128 times the boards and the people and everything else. But it's also, I think, being aware of the bigger picture and the 56,000 who are waiting right now for something. Right. And how do we reach out to, work with, and be relevant to the 56,000? Because it's nice for us to have this conversation between you and me about the sector and agencies and people we support and all of the important things that we do. But I think we need to pull in more of those people and more of those families, and never forget that more people are waiting than are being supported right now. And it's not that they can't do anything, that people always have, I hope they see opportunity in their lives, and I hope they have hope, but we need to do things in order to keep that hope afloat. And, I think right now where our targeted advocacy is around passport funding, and that's, that being the direct individualized funding that people can use to access their communities, to do the things they want to do, to have respite, to have the tools to connect. And we're saying if you're eligible for support, you've been assessed and been eligible, and then they've assessed the level of support you would need within Passport, then you should get that full allocation, because it's not enough to do 2 out of 3 when they're, it feels like being stuck on third base and you're looking to come home. So wave us home, give us the funding we need so that people can do the things that they need to do.
And just so people, so as it stands now, most people, it's not an entitlement, but most people will receive an allocation of $5,500 when they're approved to receive Passport, and then you wait until you wait for something to happen until you get the amount that you're eligible to receive. So the advocacy has been to push, no, when you're eligible, you should receive your full allocation, because a lot of times people, it's at a younger age, graduating out of school, maybe don't have anything lined up post-secondary and are looking for things to do. It's a good opportunity that we're missing to give people more support, more ability to be involved in community instead of being shut out.
Absolutely. And it's, and where we were talking about that 5 to survive and waiting to belong and getting core funding, really important to have sustainable support organizations in place, so that if, when you're provided with that Passport funding to connect with the support you need, that there are organizations in place that are able to do that. So trying to work both sides of that equation as an organization to see a bigger picture and points of connection, and how can agencies develop more revenue streams? How can they be more, I'm going to call it customer centric, right? People that want, what do they need? What are they looking for? What do they want? And how can we provide it? And how do we advocate for the resources that are going to allow those connections to take place? So that's kind of, for Community Living Ontario, that's a big piece of it, because, you said earlier, or a couple of minutes ago, support is purely discretionary. It is at the discretion of the government of the day as to who gets when and how much. Right. And, we think that by 2035, there should be some mandated supports here. There should be a recognition that if you are eligible and you need some support, you should get a reasonable amount of support in a reasonable amount of time, like we have access to education and healthcare. And so, I think we need to talk about that more. I think it scares the heck out of government to think about that and what that looks like and how much that will cost. But if we don't set the goal and have the vision, we're never going to get there. So we need to talk about it, because so many people don't have anything.
We talked about institutions closing in 2009, big accomplishment. Looking back, what about that transition did the province, did we as a sector get right? What went really well for people, and what are some of the things or areas where we have fallen short in that evolution?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's armchair quarterback, right? Or Monday morning quarterback after the Sunday game. It's easy to say. I think the fact that it happened was huge, and it happened in Ontario after some provinces, but before a lot of others. So, but it had to be done. It was the right thing to do. I think where we saw group homes as the answer, right, at the time, and it's not that this was a gradual evolving of group homes and a devolution of institutions, which I think was a intentional and smart thing to do. But at one time, Community Living Ontario, advocated for, well, maybe if it's 100 people, it's okay. Right. So our own thinking, right, as reflective of the broader conversation, was, well, 100 people in an institution, well, maybe that's okay. Well, of course, it's
back at a time when there were thousands of people in an organization, in an institution, right?
Exactly. So that was progressive. That was an evolution of thinking and what might be better. And so as long as the conversation evolves and continues on what's next, what might be better, I think we got locked into the group home model, such that as the conversation evolved from, well, then it was, well, supported independent living. What might that look like? And family home type thing. So we did start thinking about what else might be an option that would support people in their homes. But I think where we maybe and again, open for debate, where we did a misstep was there was a huge investment in the bricks and mortar, right? The government and our local associations made that we spent a ton of money and continue to spend a ton of money to maintain those homes because it was a heck of a lot better than the institution where the hundreds and the thousands were. So we
Right.
were of good intention, and you could say that about anything, right? Our sheltered workshops and even our day programs, right? These are all founded in like it's kind of like community living invented these things,
Right.
not out of trying to do bad things. We're always thinking about how might we do better, how might we connect better. So it's all from a good place, but we also found there's unintended consequences. And when you get locked into the real estate, it becomes very difficult to divest and support people in different ways. And
Right.
so the ability and the flexibility of an organization and of government to have that conversation can take years sometimes, right? It's very intertwined. It can be very bureaucratic, can be very rules focused. And so while there's people who want different things, right, knocking on the door and saying, but I don't want what you got. How can you support me in the way that where I want to live and how I want to live? And it ain't in a group home.
Right.
How do we respond and make that happen? And I think that's where we're at right now in the evolution of supports.
Well, I believe this and have said it for years that one of the things that I love about the work that we do is you're never stuck in one spot. Things are always, we've had different, journey to belonging, making services work for people. There's the sort of policy evolution, but then there's just the on the ground people making choices every day about how they want to live their lives and what that looks like. And I think one of our strengths is that we try and over time move towards being much more centered on what people actually want and trying to figure out ways to make that work. And again, it's that gradual progression over time to see things change for the better.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Now this is your job, but this is also personal for you. So you're a father of an individual with an intellectual disability. So you're not just talking about this stuff as part of your job, but you're living it every day too. What's going on? Tell us about your son and what's going on there. How do you make Journey to Belong, or how do you make community living or belonging real for you and your family?
How do I walk the talk? Is that the question, Brad?
Yeah. Better way. You should be doing the interview. That's a much cleaner question.
No, it's a great question. It's our son Mitchell is he's 31 years old now, and I think like many parents, like many families, you don't know what you don't know, and you see the landscape, and is it special ed classes going into then a special day program, then going into a special group home, and
Right.
call it a life, and wanting the best that those can be, right? If that's what you've seen, that's what you hear, that's what you know, and that was kind of certainly where we started out. And then plug for CL Toronto. Connected there for what does daycare look like and what does school look like and how might it be inclusive and in the regular classroom in our neighborhood school. And so we got support to do that, and so that was great. But then we still I'm sorry to say lacked vision as parents to say, well, and what would be after that?
Right.
What would life look like? And again, I think we still had a sort of a group home day program perception. And then through getting the position I have now was exposed to sort of, some other conversations and other thinking, and was invited to what we hold as a family leadership series of weekends, bringing families together to talk about what might a good life look like. Again, beyond the system is creating the life and then looking at the support rather than looking at what the system has and then trying to call that a life. And so that kind of flipped it around, right, for us, which seems, I don't know, maybe it seems obvious, but it wasn't at the time. And so it was a bit of a light bulb moment to say, okay, if we could pull together enough resources to hire support people that would focus on Mitchell and where he was interested and the things he wanted to explore and the person that he wanted to become. That was a whole different way of looking at it. And so, it sort of worked out that he was finishing up high school at that time, and we were thinking about what's next. And so really for him now, he's connected to the things he wants to do. And so he right now he's dying to have a job on a farm. And I'm hoping this week he's going to an alpaca farm to visit that. He's trying to figure out they're interested in hiring him.
Alpacas.
Don't know anything, but
I know. So I was going to ask you what. I think I know what an alpaca is, but I don't know much.
Picture, maybe it's not a llama, and it's not a donkey, and it's not a horse, but it's an alpaca. And
we'll have to ask Mitch when he gets some experience.
I think that'll be the thing. Yeah. So that's his, a piece of the puzzle that he wants to develop right now. He's a member of his local gym. He has a personal trainer a couple of days a week. And again, this is passport funding that pays for his personal training and gym membership.
Enables that all to happen. Yeah.
And it's fantastic. I mean, the people that he has met there, he's got a whole social network now of people that I don't know. I know a couple of them, but most of them I don't. And, we'll take them they have an open house Christmas party every year. And, I walk in and nobody looks twice. He walks in and says, "Hey, Mitch, come on, let's go." Right. And off he goes and does his thing. And that's, the owner of the gym at Christmas gave him a key to the gym. Said, you are part of us here. You can come and go whenever you want, because you're part of the family. I think that's pretty cool. And he's got his egg delivery business that he started during the pandemic, right? 6 years in now.
Okay.
Where he delivers, goes up to a farm, gets the farm fresh eggs, and delivers them in the neighborhood to his customers. And again, they see him as a business owner who's delivering awesome eggs to their door. That's pretty cool, right? And yesterday was 51 dozen he was delivering. So he makes a little bit of money. Okay. But he has support. We hire a support worker who's going to take him to the farm to help him get the eggs. And, at first, the support worker had to, go up to the door with him. And, he'd be like, "Come with me, come with me, come with me." But then he started making those connections with our neighbors, whom he knows better than I do. And then it was like, "No, you stay here, you stay here."
Right.
And he goes up now and has that little interaction and that. So it's the evolution of relationships and connecting to his community that I never
so he's created, with your support, a life for himself in a community where he feels safe and he belongs and he has purpose and he's enjoying himself, and has a life of his own. So that's
according to that's
every family's goal, I would think.
The CIS assessment says his needs for support are greater than 86% of the population in the sector.
Wow. So
don't go by the number, right? It's I often see, and this also isn't, well, that's great for your kid, but it would never work for mine. That's the point. Yeah. What works for my kid probably won't work for your kid. Right? And that's the point. But I think if you focus on the person first, and money matters. You need some money, but you also need people around you. The people at the gym, his personal trainer gets paid twice a week to work with him, but nobody else is getting paid there who knows him and values him as a member and wants to talk to him and wants to go across the street for a slice of pizza with him. And
they're friends. They become acquaintances. They're just part of his community, part of his life.
Yeah. Great. So sure, money matters, but it's how do you leverage whatever support to broaden the connection? Yeah. Right. And that's the key.
Good. What a good way to end. I'm glad to hear things are going well. Thank you for your leadership with CLO and the successes that you've had in the advocacy stuff and the work that you do that I can't imagine is easy, kind of keeping 128 of us organizations kind of trying to all row generally in the same direction, and sometimes with really good success. Often, actually, I think with really good success in what we're able to achieve.
Brad.
So thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
it's the honor of my life, as I'm sure you feel the same way, right?
Yeah.
To be able to do this kind of work, and for me, it's my life every day, 24/7. But it's important work, and it's things that are important to people. And like I said, always remembering who isn't at the table, and
Right.
trying to broaden access, and as I said, inspire possibilities.
Perfect.
It's all about.
Enjoy the rest of the summer.
Yeah, thanks, Brad. You too.
Okay,
Take care.
thanks. Thank you for listening, watching, and sharing. We release a new episode of Community Chats on the 15th and the 30th of each month, so don't forget to subscribe to stay up to date.